So what happens is in the maintenance, you are going to give to 4:2:1, 0 to 10 kg, 4 cc per kg per hour, 10 to 20 kg, you are going to give 2 cc, remaining weight 1 cc, replacing the ongoing fluids and deficits. Shortcut for calculating maintenance fluids for any patient 20 kg, more than 20 kg, and weight fluid is basically 42 plus the patient's weight in the kg. Sometimes they give you a scenario where you have to calculate the maintenance dose. It's very rare, but usually they give. So you need to remember 4:2:1. So for the first 10 kg, it's 4 cc. For next 10 to 20, it's 2 cc, and the remaining weight is basically 1 cc per kg per hour. Then unilateral dilated non-reactive pupil, think focal mass lesions, epidural hematoma and subdural hematoma. Exposure of the patients completely and assess the entire body for the injury. DRE for the trauma patients, and then keep patients warm with the blanket radiant heaters. Avoid hypothermia, warm IV fluids and the blood. Keep providers safe, contamination, and then combative patient. Now, secondary survey. So resuscitation is just the same as we already discussed. We are going to start with airway, breathing, circulation. See what is the patient needed. So contraindication of the Foley's catheter, blood to the, so they can ask you these questions in the CDM as well as in the MCQs. Blood at the urethral meatus. In the emergency medicine, all the sidebars are very, very important. Even in the general surgery and general and thoracic surgery, all the sidebars are important. Please give them a read. Contraindication to the Foley's insertion, blood at the urethral meatus, scrotal hematoma, high riding prostate in the DRE. We are not going to give the Foley's catheter. Then NG contraindication is basically mid-phase trauma and then basal skull fracture. So you can just read this one. You are going to give this, how you are going to do the resuscitation. Just give it a read. Otherwise, it's fine. Secondary survey, you're going to start with the history. History questions are samples, sign and symptoms, allergies, medication, past medical history, last meal, events related to the injury. So they can ask you in the CDM question, write down what are the questions you would like to ask in the particular scenario. And in that particular scenario, based on if this is a poisoning, you are going to ask for all of these: last meal, sign and symptoms, medication. If this is a trauma, you are going to ask for the events related to the injury, past medical history, medication, sign and symptoms. So all of those things. Now, physical examination, palpation of the facial bones and the scalp, inspect the face, trachea, flail chest, hemothorax, pneumothorax, contusion, and then auscultate, palpate for the subcutaneous emphysema. Moving to the abdomen, you are going to check for the all of these things, but don't forget the DRE. In the abdomen, DRE is very important. Musculoskeletal, examine all the extremities for the swelling, deformity, check for the pulses, log roll. Log roll is important because you're going to check in the back as well. So musculoskeleton, the log roll is important. Palpate the thoracic and the lumbar spines, checking for the iliac crust and then pubic symphysis. Then moving on to the neurological GCS, full cranial nerves, alternation of the rate and the rhythm of the breathing, progressive deterioration in the breathing, and then spinal cord integrity, conscious involvement, and unconscious patient. So you are going to start with the non-contrast CT scan, chest X-ray, fast and pelvic X-ray. Signs of the increased intracranial pressure is deteriorating, loss of consciousness, breathing should be breathing pattern is deteriorating, Cushing reflex, high BP, low heart rate, irregular respiration, lateralizing, CNS signs, seizures, papilledema, nausea, vomiting, and headache. Non-contrast head CT is the best imaging modality in the for the intracranial injury. So Jehovah's Witness is basically capable of. So these are the questions they can ask you. Like if the person is refusing, he's a Jehovah's Witness, he's in full conscious state, then definitely you are not going to give. If you find a card of the Jehovah's Witness, then definitely you are not going to give. If the card is expired, then you are going to ask for the patient's consent or the family member consent. If this is a child, then you are going to look for the emergency condition and you are going to transfuse the blood. If the child is in even in the full capacity, you are not going to see the child's capacity. You are still going to transfuse. But if they say in the legal grounds and there is an alternative option available, then definitely you can go for the alternative mobility option. But in the child, we definitely try to save the life, considering whatever so happened. But in the adult, We see their capacity, their card, their family members, their beliefs in the previous setting. If this happened, so all of these things can may help you to make the diagnosis. Simple as that. Otherwise, there is nothing more written here. Most legal cases involve the children of Jehovah's. If life-threatening is refused, contact the CAS. If possible, you are not, you don't have an option of CAS, then you are going to transfuse the blood. If there is an option of contacting the CAS, then definitely contact the CAS before doing anything else. Now, if go to the ethical emergency rule, consent is not needed when a patient is in imminent. Let's suppose if the patient is in depression and did a suicide attempt and asked you to do the refusal of the treatment. In those conditions, you are going to give the treatment regardless of that. Because if the person is in depression, it means he lost the capacity to make the decision. Since he lost the capacity, you are going to give the treatment. Exception to the emergency rule, treatment should not be initiated if the patient has a previous refused the same. That's why I said in the Jehovah's Witness, if the same condition happened in the past and he did the same, then you are going to follow the same thing or similar treatment, and there is no evidence to suggest the patient wishes have been changed. So that's why. And advanced directive is available. So that's one. Refusal of the treatment in the suicide is not an exception. Care must be given because he lacks the capacity, right? So that's why. If in doubt, initiate the treatment and we can withdraw later on. So if you don't know anything, just choose this one. Consent to treatment of children. Children should be treated regardless of anything. If nobody is willing, then go contact the CAS. Often issues of the consent is basically HIV testing and reporting to the family member. So in that condition, you are going to do the counseling and contacting the health authorities. Duty to report law may be depending on the province. Gunshot wound, suspected child abuse, communicable disease, medical sensibility, or to drive and risk of sustainable harms should be reported. So gunshot wounds is also reported. Coming to traumatology. Traumatology, the golden hour, for how long is the golden hour? Within 4 to 6 hours. Days later on, you can develop the sepsis and all those things. Injuries into the two categories, blunt and penetrating. Now coming to the consideration of the traumatic injury. Always completely expose and count the number of the wounds. Consideration of the traumatic injury. Important to know the mechanism of injury to anticipate the traumatic injuries. Always look for the underlying cause, alcohol, medication, all of those things, and inquire about the head injury, loss of consciousness, amnesia, vomiting, headache, and these things. Now, mechanism and consideration. Now, it's important. Why the mechanism like motor vehicle collision, if in which associated injuries could happen? If there is an head-on conclusion, what are the parts that could be affected? In the lateral T-bone collision, why? Because if you know the head is involved, you are going to order the CT scan. If you don't know the head is involved, how will you order CT scan? And the answer may be the option they give you, that the patient has a motor vehicle collision and he has a T-bone collision, or he has a lateral bone collision. If you don't know that his head is affected, what is the next thing you would do? You will not be able to do the CT scan. Or maybe a collarbone should be, or should be given, collar should be given to the C-spine injury. Thoracic and abdominal. That's why you need to know in which kind of collision, what kind of injury could happen. Hyperextension of the C-spine and then rollover, all of the above may be associated. Pedestrian and the automobile, in those ones, children at the increased risk of becoming an run over. Adults tend to be stuck in both the lower legs, impacted against the car, so thrown to the ground. Falls, this is important. How high was the fall? So one story is 12 feet and 3.6 distance of fall from 50% mortality in the fourth story. So if the person is falling from fourth story, so 96% chances of falling. So in 50% of mortality. If they fall from 7 stories, then 95% of dying. High risk injuries, motor vehicle are high risk, including in the ejection, motor vehicle collisions, vehicle versus pedestrian, and the fall from the height more than 12 feet. Vehicle or pedestrian crash in adults, tibia, fibula, femur, truncal injury, or the craniofacial. So these are the very common ones which happen in the collision and the pedestrian one. So please remember this one, high risk injuries. What are the high risk injuries? Because they like to test this one, and I have seen this question somewhere. Now, head trauma, 60% of the motor vehicle collision. 60% of the motor vehicle collisions are due to head injury. So fractures, skull fracture, wall fracture could be there, linear and the depressed fracture. If linear is the most common one and the depressed is basically open one, and then basal skull fracture typically occurs through the floor of the anterior cranial fossa, can be radiological or the clinical factors associated with the battle sign or the raccoon sign. Facial fracture in neurological injury is very common. So in the basal skull fracture, this battle signs and raccoon sign and hemotympanum are the signs that you would look for CSF tymphonem. So they can ask you in the basal skull fracture, what are the signs you would look for? It's even written in the sidebar. Okay. Scalp laceration can be source of significant bleeding. Achieve hemostasis, inspect and palpate for the skull bone defects. Now coming to the neurological, mild TBI or the SWARE one. So mild traumatic brain injury is concussion. Transient alteration in the mental status may involve the loss of consciousness. Hallmark of the consciousness is confusion, which can be altered on the basis of the time period. If it's only for 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes, you are going to let that person wait until he settles down. And if he wants to go home, on by telling him all the risk factors, you can discharge that person. But if it's more than certain period of time and he is still not coming back to his normal condition, as you can say, loss of consciousness must be less than 30 minutes. Initial GCS must be between 13 to 15, and post-traumatic amnesia must be less than 24. If anything is this or anything is against this, you are going to call for the CT scan, and maybe you can hold the patient back and admit the patient and refrain from all the activities. So if this is less than 30 minutes or the GCS scale was normal, or maybe 13 to 15, he was just being little drowsy or those things, in those conditions, you are going to refrain that person to have any kind of activities, going back to activities for at least a week based on the type of symptoms. Diffuse axonal injury, so it could be mild, moderate, and severe. So, comma for 6 to 24, lasting deficit, more than 24, it could cause the brainstem dysfunction, and more than 24, it leads to the brain dysfunction. In here, I would suggest you to see what are the features of the brain death and how you are going to make the diagnosis of brain death. That's important because it's not written in Toronto notes. I'm telling you to go and Google it. What is the sign and symptoms of the brain death? How you are going to confirm the brain death. Focal injuries, contusion, and the intracranial hemorrhage. Assessment of the brain injury is pre-hospital status and mechanism of the injury. Mechanism, you are going to start with the C-spine injury assumption, and then first making to rule out, then shock, Cushing syndrome, loss of consciousness, pupil size, lateralizing sign may be subtler with the increased severity of the injury. So you are going to start with the GCS less than 8, deteriorating GCS, unequal pupils, lateralizing sign. Then investigation, you are going to start with everything because electrolytes could be one of the cause. Toxicology is one of the cause. So CBC, electrolytes, INR, glucose and toxicology. In every emergency condition, don't forget CBC, electrolytes and toxicology screen. These three things should be included in your investigation. CT scan, head and C-spine imaging. Management is going to start with the reduced Kenry survey. Goal in the emergency department by avoiding hypoxia, ischemia, and then decrease CPP. You are going to start with ABC because this is basically assessment of the brain injury. So airway, breathing, circulation, airway might be disturbed. Ensure oxygen is adequately applied and intubation is there, because if GCS is less than 8, intubation should be done right away. Treat other injuries, then early neurological consultation for the acute and subsequent patient management. Severe management done by benzodiazepines. Steroids are of no proven value, so don't give steroid. It's not like don't give steroids. You can give steroids, but there is no proven value. So if there is an option of steroid, you can choose it, but it has no benefit. If they ask in the question by the benefit wise, then then steroid is not of the any benefit. Then intubate. So this is important. How you are going to manage the person who has increased ICP. Starting with the calm intubation, paralyze, hyperventilation. So starting with the elevate the head, adequate BP perfusion, and mannitol. These are the three main basic things if you have to write down in CDM. Otherwise, you can choose everything. Because elevating the head can help a lot. BP is important because it can lead toward the brain death. Mannitol can decrease the pressure right away in a drastic manner. So that's why it's important. These last three. Then disposition, neurological ICU admission, then hemodynamically unstable, or for the minor HIE, not required admission. Provide 24-hour protocol to competent caregiver, as I told you, follow up with the neurological and similarly mean HI, and restrict the patient to do those activities like playing and all those for the week. CT head is also required for the patients with a minor head injury in any of the following: high risk, medium risk, minor. High risk is when basically GCS is less than 15 at 2 hours after injury. Like 2 hours has been passed, still the GCS is decreased. Suspected open or depressed fracture, any raccoon, battle sign, or those hemotampanum, vomiting more than 2 episodes, and then age more than 65. In those conditions, definitely CT scan is needed. In medium cases, how you're going to see this person needs the CT scan. Amnesia before impact is more than 30 minutes. As we said, less than 30 minutes is okay, but more than 30 minutes, definitely. Danger sign, like which danger sign? As I told you, those dangerous one: pedestrian, motor vehicle collision, occupant, like he has been rejected from the motor vehicle, fall from the height of more than 3 feet. So in those conditions, you are going to do the CT scan. If you don't know the dangerous mechanism, you will not be able to decide if this person needs CT scan. In minor condition, you just need to monitor that person for 24 hours and refrain the activity for 1 week, and then let it go. Canadian CT scan does not apply for the non-traumatic cases for the GCS less than 15 and age less than 16, or patient on the having a bleeding disorder. So in those conditions, you are not going to the CT scan. Mild traumatic brain injury, as we already discussed, this is just a headache, sleeping disturbance, nausea, vomiting. They might have this later on in their period of the time. Extent of the retrograde amnesia correlates with the severity of the injury. So they can have irritability, depression. So you can prescribe the painkillers. Close observation and follow up for the patient at the risk of intracranial complication. Give appropriate discharge instruction to the patient, the family. Watch for the any changes of the clinical features above, and if change, return to the ED. Hospitalization with the normal CT scan. If they want to go for CT scan, definitely you are going to order the CT scan. With a normal CT scan, if there is a less than 15 GCS, seizures, bleeding, diastasis, with the normal CT scan, hospitalization, pharmacological management of pain, depression, and headache. Depending on that, you are going to give Tylenol or whatsoever is needed. Follow return to the play guidelines. As I told you, 1 week refrainment is there. And slowly they can start activity. I will send you that play guidelines. Then athletes with a previous concussion are at increased risk of the cumulative brain injury and those ones. Spine injury, just the same question, history question you are going to ask. Every patient with one or more of the following sign and symptoms should be placed in the C-spine collar. Simple as that. Midline tenderness, neurological symptoms, distracting injuries, head injury, intoxication, dangerous mechanism, history of the altered level of consciousness. Now you know when are you going to put the C-spine collar. One of the investigation, the lateral C-spine X-ray is the single most important film. 95% radiological visible abnormalities are found on this film. So if you go by the side or the lateral C-spine X-ray, that's more than enough to do anything else. Same history mechanism, you are going to check for the sample, neck pain, paralysis, weakness, and paresthesia. Then physical examination, you are going to do ABC, abnormal ecchymosis, tenderness, complete exam, then mental status, monitor the neurological position, palpate the C-spine, log roll, palpate T-spine, and L-spine, assess the rectal tone. Then when palpating, assess for the tenderness, muscle spasm, bony deformities, then extremities, check for the capillary refill. So you are going to check for the circulation as well as neurological signs, because spine has in the middle of the spine, in front of spine, there is aorta as well, and vena cava. Then investigation, then CBC, electrolytes, creatinine, glucose, coagulation profile. So you are going to go for the C-spine X-ray. As we already discussed, the lateral one is the best. Thoracolumbar spine, you can go for it, but the C-spine is already best. C-spine injury, it can help you to find out the C-spine, non-conscious patient, neurological deformities, then back pain, and then Bilateral calcaneal fractures, consider CT scan if needed or MRI. Now, this table is everything you need to do from here. Suspected C-spine injury based on the mechanism of injury, as we discussed, motor vehicle collision, fall, and the sports. You are going to check for the history, as we already discussed, the numbness, midline, what are he's facing, there is an history of mobility disorder, headache, intoxication, those things. Then coming to the physical examination, then next was crepitus, any neurological deficit, autonomic dysfunction, and altered mental status. No, then the C spine is cleared. On the basis of history and physical examination, don't need to do anything. But if there is, then you are going to do the plain X-ray of the three views. As we discussed, which three views? AP, lateral, and then odontoid. The lateral one is the best one. CT scan, if inadequate plain film survey, suspicious plain film film findings to better delineate the injuries seen on the plane, then check for the suspicions of the atlantoaxial subluxation. So you are going to check for all of these things. If any of these things is present in X-ray, then go for CT scan. If normal films, then check for the neck pain. If the neck pain is normal or there is neck pain, sorry, if there is neck pain, then go for flexion extension films. Then if the C spine is cleared. If it's not cleared, the flexion and extension, then go for the further, then remain immobilization, put the spine collar, go for MRI, and then check if the C spine is cleared. And if the X-ray is cleared and CT scan was done, was normal, abnormal neurological exam, then go for MRI right away. If there is any of the CT scan abnormal, go for immobilization and then consult the spine services right away. On the sidebar, any high risk factors, as we discussed, which one? Motor vehicle collision, fall, and then any sports that mandates the radiography, age more than 65, or any dangerous mechanism, as we already discussed, motor vehicle ejection fraction, fall from the high story of 12 feet, paresthesia or in extremities. If there is nothing, what are you going to do? Any low risk factors, then you are going to check for the low risk factor. What are those ones? Simple rear-ender motor vehicle collision, sitting position in the emergency department, like he is falling down or drowsy or those things, ambulatory at any time, like he needs help to sit down, and then delayed or not immediate onset of the neck pain, he's having neck pain, onset of the midline C-spine tenderness, there is a C-spine, then you are going to go for able to actively rotate. So you're going to check for the what is called X-ray, then go for more than 45-degree right and left angle rotation. If everything is normal, then go for rotation. Then no radiograph is needed. If anything is present, even in the low risk, go for radiograph, which is basically X-ray. And then if there is an X-ray problem, then go for CT scan. If there is any CT scan problem, then go for MRI based on the finding. So please remember this table, figure 3, and this one. If you don't want to read these ones, you can skip this one, but don't miss these tables. Can clear C-spine if oriented and no evidence of intoxication, no posterior midline cervical or no focal neurological deficit. Management of C-spine, definitely starting with the immobilization, ABC, treat neurological shock, insert the NG, but ruling out all the contraindications of NG and Foley's catheter, complete imaging of the spine and consult spine services, then continually reassess the high cord injuries, as the edema can travel up the cord. So that's why always reassess it. Low cervical transaction provide the abnormal breathing. So low one and the high one can lead towards the intubation, and the low one can lead towards the breathing. They can ask you in the MCQs. Treatment, warm blankets is needed, Trendelenburg position, and then volume infusion. So warm blanket, Trendelenburg position, volume infusion, consider the vasopressor. So basic thing, warm blankets, Trendelenburg position should be given if there is any of the respiratory insufficiency and there is a lower or high cord traction. Now approach to the C-spine X-ray. So as we discussed, the lateral one is the best one. Prevertebral soft tissue swelling is the only 49%. And you can just, if you want to read this one, you can read this one. Adequacy and alignment, bones. So how you are going to interpret the X-ray. It's more important in the neck OSCE. Sequel of the spine fractures. What happen is, if this is an acute, what happen is spine shock, neurogenic shock, and chronic phase. So in the acute one, what happened is the reflexes are decreased. There is a neurogenic shock. The person might suffer from the airway, might needs airway support. The breathing is disturbed, as we discussed. The breathing in which level? If it's C5 to T1, it's abdominal breathing. If it's above C4, it's intubation that's required. Then chronic leads towards the genitourinary and all of those supply of the neurogenic one. So we are going to do the MCQs. Let's go with this one, and then we will continue from here. So we still have some topics to do from emergency medicine. So we will do that from tomorrow. So just a second. Yeah.